the colors. Oh, shoot. Okay. Mike, here we go. All right, are we live now? Are people watching? Okay, well, welcome again to our first workshop for the fall, the colors of fall. And I'm so happy to present this workshop to you. I just want to start out by welcoming everybody and letting you know what a pleasure it is to interact with you in this way, to have you on board. This is lovely, and I just can't wait to get started. But before I do, I want to just say this, that the materials I'm about to present you in this workshop are meant to be used as tools. They're never meant to override your own judgment, your own aesthetic, or your own ideas. They're meant to add to your toolbox of useful items that can help you get through troubling or interesting problems or things that you just weren't sure about. All of the things I'm about to give you are simply ways that you can think about creating color and creating the colors of fall. Shall we get started?
I
Peter, are we
think we
ready?
are. I'm just going to say hi to a few people. We got Bev Hall from Ontario. We have Margie Lewis from Newfoundland. We have Jan Tivell from LaConner.
Hi. Oh, hi, Jan.
Yeah, we got a good crowd with us today.
Oh, wonderful. That's fantastic. Well, I'm excited. I love fall. After the hot summer we had, it's been such a delicious time of year. And the colors are absolutely ripe for the picking. And so thanks, Peter. You can interrupt me anytime you want to make a comment, or if someone's asking questions, if it's really pertinent to what we're saying,
Yeah.
just go ahead and interrupt. I'm going to start a little, some little visuals for our trip into creating the colors of fall.
Sounds great.
Here we go. For me, fall is such a wondrous time. I was raised in the Cascade Mountains, and we had maple trees everywhere. And it was actually near Leavenworth, and we had a festival every year of the autumn leaf colors. And what a beautiful, beautiful time of year. We absolutely, as artists, can be in love with the brilliant contrasts. I love the fact that the plants are changing, and the seed pods are such interesting shapes and colors, great for close-ups or far away imagery. The light has changed from summer light, that straight down light, into this beautiful angled, warm light. And of course, there's the leaves. The painting to the left is a picture of near where I was raised. The painting on the right is from New England, and we just have such a wonderful, wonderful assemblage of colors and shapes in this northern part of the United States and in Canada. We have this gorgeous, wherever you are in latitude, there's just a certain level you cross, and then the trees make this change for fall, and we love it. Here are a few paintings I did in the past of my love of fall colors, both from the countryside, the birches. There was a little birch forest near to where our cabin was as a kid, and also on my home where I lived on Camino Island. I lived for a while in Seattle, and the painting to the left was from one of the streets in Seattle when the sunlight was blazing through the trees. Here are a few paintings of fall from some other artists that I really love. This is some work by Brian Buckrow. Here are some amazing paintings by my very favorite artist of all time, Sergei Bongart. William F. Reese, who passed away not long ago, was a teacher of mine, and these are some of his interpretations of fall. A dear, dear friend of mine who lives in Oregon as well, Ramona Youngquist. And of course, our own Jed Dorsey. Painting the colors of fall also means painting the color of the light. But before we do that, oh no, I always do this to you. If you've taken any of my courses, you know I always add these color basics, because these 4 basic aspects of color are what are the language we artists use to talk about color. And so I want to get us on the same page, even if briefly. If you've seen my other courses or been in my other classes, you will have seen this, so consider it review. If you haven't, you'll see it again, so that will be review. But first aspect of color is called hue. And hue just is the basic name of the color family. Red, yellow, and blue are the primaries. Orange, green, and violet are the secondary colors. And under this umbrella terminology, we can name all kinds of colors. Albert Munsell was a pioneer in color theory, and he defined hue as the quality by which we distinguish one color from another. Hues are the basic colors we learn to connect with color words as children. So let's take a look at what I mean just briefly. Under this banner, red hues, I took this chart off of a hardware paint store, but you can see all these different colors come under that umbrella banner, red. Because when I say the word red, everybody might come up with a slightly different color in their imagination. We need some other terms besides the color name to define a color. Here's my little grandson playing at the zoo during the zoo lights, and they had all these blue lights on in a snowball throwing room, and everything was blue. So under this banner blue, you can see there's lots and lots and lots of different choices. This is a 4-foot by 4-foot painting I did a long time ago, where I took every single aspect of the hue yellow and added it into this painting of dancers' skirts moving. When we see the different colors of yellow below, both the muted colors and the bright colors, there's so many different aspects. So let's take a look at the other 3 aspects of color that we use to define. And the second aspect of color is value, and that we mean the lightness or darkness of a color based on what we have paints to represent. So each color, each pigment has a lightness or darkness of its own, right out of the tube or right out of the color grand box. But also, you can change the value of a color. You can darken a color by adding black or a dark pigment. You can lighten a color by adding white or a light pigment. And so every color can be described in terms of this value scale. And we'll talk about the values in a little bit, but let's just say that everything that's in the light, no matter what color it is going to be represented by one of these values. If you can see my cursor, everything that is brightly colored or in transition from light to shade would be in one of these value ranges. And everything that is in shadow would occur in one of these value ranges. Let's talk about the third aspect of color. It's a difficult one for some people to wrap their heads around, so I want to make it really easy. It is the visual warmth or the visual coolness of a color. So warm colors are the color of fire or the sun, red, orange, and yellow. And cool colors are the colors of cool water, snow, ice. And we can see this spectrum below. This spectrum down here shows us how the warm colors and cool colors fall on the light spectrum. So if you haven't yet seen my course, The Color of Light, you will see how that represents wavelengths in our eyes, but we're not talking about that today. I just want you to see why warm colors are grouped in one section, cool colors affect us in another way, and in paint, white is considered a cool color. And the fourth aspect of color we need to discuss in order to make sense of what I'm about to talk to you. I'm actually going to talk to you about the 4 seasons so we can see how fall is uniquely situated. This fourth aspect of color is intensity, and that is the brightness or dullness of a color. So colors can be faded or dulled in a number of different ways, and we'll look at that in my demo. But you can see colors can take on a very brilliant hue, and here are saturation, intensity, chroma, and brightness all mean the same thing. So when you hear these terms in art, saturation, intensity, and chroma, that means how bright a color is. Low chroma, not so bright. High chroma, very bright. Low saturation, not so bright. So these terms are all interchangeable, and it just means bright or dull. Browns, grays, beiges are dull counterparts to brighter colors. And we'll talk about all of that in just a minute. So here I've got this beautiful picture of maple leaves, I think they're maple, looking up into this gorgeous tree, and I took it onto Photoshop and I simplified it. I just posterized it down to a few simple colors. So here in the center of the image we have a red, a bright, intense, mid-value, warm red. Here's the intensity, the value, and the temperature. The hue is red, the 4 different aspects of color. Down below, way down at the bottom of the page, we see this color, and it's actually a dark, cool red. When we look way up here and we compare this little red spot to this one down here, this is a mid-value warm red, but it's not quite as warm as this one. This one's more fiery. They're both mid-value warm. One is just warmer. And over to the side, we see these pinky colors over here. These are light, cool reds. So you can see how we can use these 4 aspects of color, these terms, to describe a color to somebody who may not even be looking at the color. Mid-value, dull red is this browny red, sort of that lives in that mid-range. It's neither dark nor light. And you can use these terms in any different way to create a visual picture, and also to create a way of comparing like colors to like colors in your own paintings. Here's my paint box. I have it separated into 9 hues, and these are the 9 basic colors that I gave you on the list. If you did not get all 9 colors, that's fine. We'll talk about the 4 color list I gave you as well. But let's discuss them in terms of those 4 aspects of color. Here I have Hansa Yellow. It's actually Hansa Yellow Opaque now. My company stopped making Hansa Yellow Light. But compared to, it is warm. Yellows are warm. Yes, yellows are warm. But compared to the other yellows, it's cooler than the other yellows, and it's bright. So hue is yellow, the value is light, and the temperature is cool, the intensity is bright. Here's Derylite Yellow. It's a warm, bright yellow. It is like the warmest color on my palette. It's very much more like fire. Hansa Yellow Opaque is more like daffodils than fire. And over here we've got Yellow Oxide, which is a cool, it's neutral or duller, lower saturation, less intense than the other two yellows. For my reds, I have Quinacridone Magenta. It's cool because if you compare red to red to red, if you move your eyes across the reds, you'll see that Quinacridone Magenta looks like it might have a note of blue in it. And when there's a note of blue in something, it makes it a little cooler. So we will call Quinacridone Magenta cool. It's very bright. It's a mid-value. The next color I have on my list is Naphthol Red Light. It's warm, it's bright, it's mid-value. When we compare like colors, we can see the differences in value, temperature, and intensity. It's very difficult when you only have one red on your palette. Of course, red's warm. But compared to the other reds, there are cool ones and warm ones. So here we go. We have Quinacridone Burnt Orange is my third red. They call it, the name of it is Quinacridone Burnt Orange. Other companies call it Quinacridone Burnt, what did they call it? Quinacridone Burnt something or other. But it sort of replaces Burnt Sienna on my palette. It's a little cleaner and a little more transparent than Burnt Sienna. And so I have used this quinacridone color to replace that, and you'll see why in a minute. I love its very transparent aspect to create beautiful neutrals on my palette. For my blues, I have Ultramarine Blue, which leans violet, and it's very bright. I have Phthalo Blue Green shade, which leans yellow or leans towards the green side of things, and it is also very, very bright, highly saturated color. You only need a tiny drop of Phthalo Blue Green shade to get the job done. And the final color on my palette is sometimes hard to find. It's called Anthraquinine Blue. It's also known as Indanthrone Blue and also Indanthrene Blue. They're all the same color, but it's very cool. It's like the most neutral, cool blue. But when you add white to it, it tends to go a little neutral. It starts to gray up a little bit. So I want to show you these 9 colors with a little touch of white added to them, so you can see what they look like when, I call it when the color opens up. You can see how the aspect of color might be neutral, warm, or cool when you see how it opens out with white. I hope I'm not going too fast, but I also don't want to slow us down either. Here's a little demo I'm going to do for our friends who are using the very limited color list. And this is how I set up my palette. I put white in the upper right-hand corner. I put yellow in the lower right-hand corner. These are my lights. I put blues in my upper left-hand corner and reds in my lower left-hand corner. These are my dark colors. These are how I darken a color. So in this one I have Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Blue Green shade, Titanium White. Those are my cool colors, white and blue, cool colors. At the bottom of the page, I have my primary red, and those are my warm colors. So if I want to cool a color, I put blue and white. I have, you can see, I'm like, I took the sound off of this so I could talk my way through it. Now I'm getting all funneled up. But these are my light colors, these are my dark colors, and I'm going to show you how I proceed to use this palette. I mix it like a color wheel. Since our eyes can see green better than almost any other color, unless you're colorblind, I usually mix my green first, middle green, between the yellow and blue. Then here I'm using my phthalo green blue shade so you can see the difference between the two greens, how these blues make very different greens. Just adding a little cadmium yellow light. So to make a blue green, I add a little extra blue. To make a yellow green, I add a little extra yellow. And I try to position those colors next to the primaries that made them. For orange, I go ahead and mix half and half orange and red and yellow. Then I'll mix a yellow orange to one side, a red orange to the other. The same way goes for my violets. Here's a violet made with ultramarine blue and primary red. Here's a little white to open it up so you can see what we're talking about. Here's blue violet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a little bit of yellow and add a tiny drop of yellow to that. What I'm making is my black. There it is. I just made my black. I don't normally put black on my palette because I tend to get black mixed in with everything and muddy up all my colors. So I tend to mix my own black. If you are fine with black, go ahead and make black or put black on your palette. Here I'm using a little of the phthalo blue-green shade to show you the difference in the color purple when I use phthalo with the red. And I'm just going to fast forward through it just a little bit. The purple you can see is slightly, ever so slightly duller, but not too bad. It's a really beautiful, beautiful purple that you can get with this color. For a brighter purple, I would use the ultramarine. For a slightly more muted purple, I would use the phthalo blue-green shade. For things that I'm, tints of white, I'm going to use this whole other corner of my palette. Now I'm going to challenge you to, I'm going to challenge you right now to use this setup on your palette today. Because it really helps you find your colors, keep your colors clean, locate them. I'm going to show you how to cool down this blue. What I'm going to do is cool down the green. The green is right there in the middle. I'm mixing blue and white together to become the same value as the green. So I don't change the value. And now I'm going to add blue and white to that green mixture, and you can see I've just cooled it without changing the value. I've cooled it considerably. That's what blue does. It cools down the temperature. Now I'm going to lighten it, and to lighten it I'm using a mixture of yellow and white. If I add too much white, remember white is a cool color, and if I add too much white, it'll cool it down too much. Now I'm using yellow and white mixture to lighten that mixture, and you can see what a nice light, cool green that makes. Compare it to the yellow green. What a beautiful color. So to cool a mixture, I use blue or white or a combination. To warm a mixture, I use yellow or red or a combination. And here I'm going to try to dull my green. To dull a color, you take its opposite on the color wheel, and the opposite of this color is red. So what I'm going to do is take just a touch, oh, look at that tiny little touch of red, and put it next to the green, not in it. And then I'm going to smear it around in there. Is that dull enough? Not quite. I'll take another touch of red, add it, smear it in. Is that dull enough for me yet? Not quite yet. I'll take another touch. Rather than scooping and dumping, I'm going to use these tiny drops until I get it the right intensity. Look at how the red has dropped, the intensity of that green. This is how I mix my palettes. You can see all the colors are separated. If I need more fine-tuned color mixing, I often can do it right on my canvas. So let's move on. And I want to talk to you about yellows. So that was a palette where I had taken my very, very simple 3-color palette, but let's look at why I have 3 yellows on my palette. Yellows are the powerhouse of your palette. So we know that the hue is yellow, the value is light, the temperature is warm, and the intensity is bright. For yellow oxide, we've got a more mid-light value, the temperature is cool, and the intensity is muted. And for Hansa yellow, the hue is yellow, the value is very light, the temperature is cool, and the intensity is bright. Here is a little image of fall, and I'm just going to compare it to these 3 different yellows. Here's a picture of late fall, early winter. I'll do the same thing. And a picture of springtime in midday. First of all, let's look at the influence of the Dianna yellow on this really bright, intense image. We can see a note of yellow oxide, but there's no way that yellow oxide is going to create those vivid, bright yellows that are in this image. Nor is the Hansa yellow light as effective as the Dianna yellow. Now let's take a look at my late autumn, early winter. The Dianna yellow is way too bright, but the yellow oxide, when I move my eye back and forth from the pigment to the image, I can really see its influence. And here in the picture of early spring, we can see how inappropriate Dianna yellow would be to create these delicate greens, as would yellow oxide. But here, when we compare it to Hansa yellow light and move our eye back and forth, you can see the influence of the Hansa yellow in that image. We'll look at them again when it comes to weather and time of day. On the left, I have an image from Tuscany, and it was an overcast, cloudy day. You can see the influence of yellow oxide, my muted, my less intense yellow in the imagery in that photograph. The middle picture is from the same community on the same day. The sun came out in the afternoon, and we're going to take a look at the influence of Dianna yellow in the color of the light on the bricks. And the third picture is from the next day, early morning. And when we move our eye from the little yellow flowers to the color of Hansa yellow light with white added, you can see the influence. This is where I think yellows are really important to us, because we can choose a yellow that helps us create more and speak more articulately about the time of day and the season we are discussing. You can see the influence now just by looking across the Dianna yellow in the autumn picture, the yellow oxide in the winter picture, and the Hansa yellow light influence in the spring ones. Did it become easy for you? I hope so. So here's winter. We're going to discuss all 4 seasons in this part of the hemisphere where all 4 seasons become apparent. We can see there's some things in common. These are just suggestions. Nothing replaces what you see out of your eyes, your own personal observations. These are just sort of gross generalizations about a season. So if you see something different, I'm not the authority here. I'm just making some basic generalizations that we can hook color ideas onto. But in general, I would say winter colors are cool. They are low chroma. And as for values, that values just depends on the time of day and the lighting situation. But I would say we are dealing with cool, muted colors. Or these three colors. Let's take a look at how I would think about this. First of all, let's take a look at yellow oxide, this muted color, and you can see its influence in the bark on the trees. Here's quinacridone burnt orange and anthraquinine blue. I've created this color chart, and I gave you a blank color chart like this in your materials, and I'm going to show you how to build one. I just labeled this low intensity color, and I put all three of these colors. So in the blue, this is anthraquinine blue with nothing added. It looks black. This outer strip, I've added a little bit of white to open it up. Over here on the red, this is quinacridone burnt orange right out of the tube with a little, and that's with a little bit of white to open it up. This is yellow oxide. So on the right hand side, you'll see all the yellows and oranges that you can get. Down here at the bottom are the green tones possible with this combination. And over on the left are the violet tones possible. Let's compare and see what we've got. Take a look at how this scene could be interpreted. The violets in the shadows on the snow, the warm trunks of the trees. In this inner circle, what I've done is I've taken the red and I've added a drop of the green to it. I've taken the blue, I've added a drop of orange to it. I've taken the yellow and I've added a drop of purple to it. In the center, I've got even amounts of all of those colors. But take a look into the dark parts behind the trees. It's hard to see right now. They're almost all covered up. But you can see that this palette would be a pretty good choice for winter. It's not the only choice you can make, but it would be a fairly good choice. There's lots of reasonable colors in here that could do a very nice job of recreating this imagery. So I want to move right on to spring. And my generalizations about spring are that spring has very vivid, bright colors and cool colors. And so let's take a look at these vivid, bright. Now, of course, when we're thinking about spring, there are some exceptions. There's exceptions everywhere all the time. But I'm just going to put a circle around what I would consider my cooler colors right here. Ultramarine blue, quinacridone magenta, Hansa yellow opaque. I want to take you on a little trip for a minute to my green chart. What I've done is I've taken all my yellows and I've added a little white to them. Here I've mixed ultramarine blue and yellow oxide, yellow, green, green, blue, green, and then I've added a little white to them. Here I've used my phthalo blue-green shade, yellow, green, green, blue, green, and below added a little white. You can see that what this color chart does is opens you up to the possibilities of how many greens there might be with this 9 colors that I have in my color box. This isn't by any means the whole range, because we haven't even added drops of red or yellow. We haven't mixed the ultramarine blue and the anthraquinine blue. There's all kinds of different ways of interpreting this. But let's take a look at what else I've done. I've done the same thing with my oranges. I've created a chart that shows you what happens when you mix a cool yellow with a cool red, a warm yellow with a warm red, a neutral yellow with a neutral red. You can see a lot of amazing possibilities of what colors you can get with these 6 pigments. So let's go back to our spring. And I'm looking at my green chart. And I found a color that I think looks pretty good with this ultramarine and Hansa Yellow Opaque. Those are the 2 cool colors. Remember, I circled those on the chart. Here they are. Take a look. I think they represent these colors pretty well, the green colors in my image. Here's the orange chart. Now I'm going to take the 2 cool colors, the Hansa Yellow Opaque and the Quinacridone Magenta, and let's take a look at these pinks and reds. I think they do a really good job of representing the cool reds, even some of the oranges, definitely the yellows. I'm imagining that if I were to mix these colors, I could create a lot of the neutrals that I'm seeing here as well. What do you think? If I were to just do 3 colors, red, a yellow, and a blue, I would probably choose ultramarine blue, Hansa Yellow Opaque, and Quinacridone Magenta for this image. In summer, we get really strong value differences. The image, the greens, the colors are quite warm and bright. Now, of course, everything changes with the time of day, with the weather. These are my generalizations for this season. So please remember, your observation is more important than my generalizations. But now I'm looking at the colors of green that we're taking from my warm, bright yellow, Diarlight Yellow. And we're going to compare them to this tree and to some of the greens that I see here. And here I'm looking at this late afternoon, late in the season, summer, and I've taken again the colors from my Diarlight Yellow, and I'm thinking, oh, look at how muted the greens are. Perhaps anthraquinine blue, maybe a mixture of phthalo and ultramarine would represent these colors really beautifully. What do you think? All of this is up to you. Every color choice is in your hands. But when I'm looking at trying to find a yellow that mixes to create these wonderful greens, these wonderful yellows, these wonderful oranges, that's what I'm after. And here, take a look again at this list of colors made from Diarlight Yellow. You can see that all of these greens could be used in these 2 images of late summer. Okay, but what about fall? Here we've got ultramarine and Diarlight. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? Here's fall. Early fall, we might consider warm, bright, and intense. I feel like the colors that are iconic to the season have those aspects. So let's take a look at what we can do to create warm, bright, intense colors. I've got my Naphthol Red Light, my Diarlight Yellow, my Phthalo Blue Green shade. I'm not going to count out the other colors. Of course, they're all available to me. They're all in my paint box. I'm just thinking, if I only had 3 colors to use to represent, which ones might I choose? And these little charts and all of this stuff I'm doing right now is just kind of zeroing in on some ideas of color families you might choose to create the colors of fall. Phthalo Blue Green shade, Naphthol Red Light, Sterilized yellow. Can you see the influence of those three colors in this image? I can. But there's one more thing I want to talk to you about before we get to my demo. And that is, what do you do when your colors, the intense colors that you've made for your fall picture, don't look intense enough? Let's look to the top orange ball. Well, there's some things you can do. You can create contrast. What happens when you put one intense color right next to another similar color that's intense is both of them lose their intensity. So when you place an orange next to its opposite on the color wheel or a color, you're going to expose its intensity. One of the problems with having them both be the same exact intensity is it kind of hurts your eye. They begin to vibrate really rapidly in your eye. Can you see that happening? And they're almost the same value. So let's take a look at what happens if we lighten that blue. The orange looks intense and the blue stops vibrating as much. Here is a darker version of blue where the intensity has been dropped and the orange looks very vivid. It looks more bright than the first one we saw. And here's another option, to put it against a bright, vibrant, dark that has blue in it, but blue isn't the only component. You can see how posing this orange against things that have its opposite on the color wheel, but have a different value, enhance the vibrancy of the color. Let's take a look at the red, and we're going to do something similar. We're going to pose it next to its color opposite. It's the same value. I don't know about you, but that hurts. It's great, and it hurts. So someone in this dance would have to lead, and someone would have to follow, having the same amounts, the same brightness, and the same value. Well, let's take a look. If we just darken it a little bit. Now the red. It's this exact red. I did not change this red at all. It's the exact red that was in the first image, but being paired next to a darker version of its color opposite makes it look much more intense. Here it is paired with a lighter version of its color opposite. And again, you can see it really looks more intense. So I have had students ask me, they say, I've squeezed cadmium orange out of the tube and it doesn't look bright enough. Well, then I have to say, who is your color's neighbor? What is it next to? Here is the final version. It is, there's some red and green, both in this brown, dark brown I've put behind the red. And I've made it much darker, and you can see how the red just seems to glow. These are all ideas for how you can make a color look more intense. Now let's look at this final color, yellow, and we'll pair it next to its color opposite, purple, and I've intentionally lightened the purple so it's a similar value to the yellow. Here is a blue violet, much darker, and here is yellow added to purple, put behind the yellow, made much darker. You can see how on each of these images, these final ones appear to be much more intense than the first version. Move your eye back and forth, and you can really feel how pairing this brilliant color next to something that has some of itself and some of its opposite really creates a bed for that color to be seen. So here's what we're going to do today. This is what we're going to do in just a moment. I gave you this image of a little house in Maine, in black and white. So if you've printed that up, you can go ahead and put that near your painting space. I've also put up one of these color mixing charts that is blank. And if you've printed it up, you can get it out. If you haven't, that's fine. Try it another time. Now on my wet palette, I've made a wet palette. You'll see it in a minute, and I've divided it into 4 sections because we're going to try 4 different color combinations today. We're going to play with color. And so down here at the bottom, I've divided my canvas into kind of 4 pieces. So this is what all my stuff is going to look like eventually. But right now I'm going to escape out of here and go back to me. Hi, I'm back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up my photo reference so you can see it. And it's just going to take me a second to find, and oh, here it is. I'm just going to slide my photo reference if I can. Oh, it doesn't want to go. Okay, well, so much for that. I hope you have it. Peter, any solutions? I don't know why my reference won't go up there. Well, what I'm trying to do is put a photo reference onto Ecamm Live. I'm dragging it and trying to drop it on there, and it's not dropping. So
Gotcha.
I'm gonna try. I don't want to escape out of here, but I have my reference over by my my easel, and I will, have it on. So it's not as important as that seems.
Sounds great.
So I'm going to go over to my painting space, and I'm going to get started putting some colors together. And we're going to use that black and white photo of that house in Maine, and we're going to mix colors together. If you have all those colors, if you have only got the 4 color section that I gave you, that's fine too. We're going to mix those as well. I'm not going to leave anyone behind, but we're going to try to recreate those 4 seasons using the colors that I described just a minute ago. So I'm clicking over to my canvas now. There it is. You can see, oh, look, my white dripped. It's on a slant. Oh, that's hilarious. So I'm going to go over there, and I am going to set things up so you can see my image, my paints, everything I've got will be available to you. Oh, that's really sad. Well, you can tell my paper is wet. Here we go. I'll just use a scraper and pull it back up. I've divided my big Masterson's Stay Wet palette into 4 sections because we're going to use 4 color harmonies. I've got this color mixing chart here. I'm going to move off to the side. What I've done, I'll move my paint box off to the side. What I've done is I've taken a 16 by 20 piece of canvas paper. This is Frederick's canvas. It comes in a pad, and it's real canvas. And I've divided it into 4 sections and done just a really brief little sketch on there. Now, I'm going to go get my photos that I set aside. I had them all a second ago. I buried them under a palette. Here we go. Here's the color one for fall. There's one more. The black and white one is the one I want you to get out. If you have it. If you don't, you can look at mine. Is that showing up, Peter? Can we see that? All right. Super. So the first thing is I'm going to open my color box up. Here's all those colors I showed you in the slides. And I'm going to pull out some cooler, bright colors for spring. And I'm going to not paint this whole thing. I'm just going to mix some of those colors. So remember my cool brights. There's Hansa Yellow Opaque. Oh, this quinacridone magenta got some gunk on it. I'll move it off. Here's quinacridone magenta. And for the sake of argument, using the spectrum scale, I'm going to say that ultramarine blue is a cool color. Now, people have argued this. People argue back and forth. I don't want to get in an argument with anybody. I'm just using it as a cool color. Here we go. And there's my first little 3 primary palette, my red, my yellow, my blue. And I am going to use this black and white photo and pretend like this is spring. And so I'm going to use my my little color shaper here. You can use whatever you want. I'm going to mix up some of the colors of spring. Just by mixing these colors together, blue green, I'm mixing yellow green, blue green and green. I'm going to mix a purple, and an orange. And I'm not going to like paint this whole thing as if it was a painting. I am rather going to just sort of put the colors where they basically might go in this painting. That's why I did a little sketch on it. If you didn't sketch this in, shame on you. No, I didn't tell you to. So for you, just sectioning off your canvas and putting some colors down. You can put some sort of house-shaped colors down where the house goes, and some tree kind of colors down where the tree goes. I'm also going to mix it dark using my 2 darks. That makes a dark purple, and I'm going to add just a touch of yellow to it so it's not purple purple. So I'm just going to get started. A little darker, and I'm not putting a wash down. I'm just putting these colors up side by side to see how I think they're going to look together and whether it creates a springy springtime look or not. What do you say? Just putting in the darks. And I'm going to go pretty fast, and if you're painting along, don't worry. I had a teacher who used to say all the time, don't worry and don't hurry. Well, maybe hurry a little bit, but not too much, okay? Don't worry and don't hurry. It's all good. Excellent. I'm just checking my time to make sure how much time I have here. Now I'm going to use my light color. I can switch to a brush too. I don't have to use this color shaper for the whole thing. I've got my brushes here. This is a number 4. It's one of my favorites. This is a number 6. These are Snap by Princeton, the same company that makes the Catalyst brushes. Um, so I'm just going to mix up a little warm yellowy white for the front
Hey
of the
Diana, we have a quick
dragon.
question.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
June Clark asks, what color red is this, and is there a substitute for it? I have a crimson and a violet.
Use the crimson. It's quinacridone magenta, and the crimson is a similar color, so go for it. And these are not, I mean, you can use any warm, cool, neutral that you have on in your box. You don't have to use these exact colors. You'll get slightly different results, but who cares? We're all individual artists. So we can have individual results. And yeah, just choose a cool, look in your box and choose a cool red. And I'm sure that what you have will be wonderful. So take a look now. Here I'm going to my light yellow green. I'm going to add a little bit of white to that yellow green to lighten it up even further. Whew, look at that. Now, again, I'm not trying for an absolute accurate representation. What I'm trying here for is just to pop in these colors and see if we can make them look like springtime. And doing it as fast as possible, because what we really want to get to is fall. So I am comparing lights to lights and darker colors, darker notes to darker notes. And just trying to pop some of these major colors in. And it's really sort of fun. I'm enjoying this because there's no, there's no impetus to make it exactly perfectly right. It's just to put the colors down and see if this is working. And see if something else, ooh, I want my blue to be really clean and I've lost all my clean space. There we go. And this isn't the only way. You could try all kinds of different colors to get this cool, bright, springtime look. Oh, but I'm liking this a lot, aren't you? Look at how delicate the colors are becoming. When I divided up my palette, the mixing space went away. So sorry about that. But we're just going to do some simple mixtures anyway and see, oops, that's a little darker against the blue. See how these colors appear when we mix for springtime. Keeping them bright, keeping them cool. So by adding white to the yellow green, I'm also cooling that color down just a little bit. I want to put some flowers in that hedge. I think that would be really fun to do. Obviously, drawing accuracy wasn't one of the criteria here. Take a look at what's happening, though. I'm absolutely loving some of the things that are happening in this spring. In our spring colors. Need to get more color up there or I'm going to be here all day. Maybe this was too big of an image to get done in like 10 minutes. I'm giving myself that much time to sort of explore this first color harmony. The other vivid blue that I have is phthalo blue green shade. And as we saw in my little slide presentation, phthalo blue green shade can make some pretty amazingly bright greens. If you are finding these not vivid enough, you could switch to that color. And sometimes a drop of it is just what you need. I'm just going to go ahead and put in some of this sky color. Let's see. Shall we experiment with a drop of phthalo? What? Look at that color. Oh, you betcha. There it is. So I'm thinking about these colors that I've set aside as being more springtime colors. And then we're going to do this same. Oh, look at that. That is so lame. Oh dear. We're going to do this same image again. I've got it drawn out 4 times, and we're going to use the brighter, richer colors of summer. We're going to compare all these colors that we've chosen, well, to each other and see whether this works or not. It's a brave experiment. And the reason I like doing it on these little pieces of canvas paper is that it has there's no repercussions. There's no downside. See, I think that phthalo is too turquoise. I'll go back to my ultramarine. I liked it better for that springtime delicate sky.
Hey Diana.
Yes. Any other? What's going on?
Your voice is kind of faded out a bit. Could you possibly turn your mic up or something like that?
Yeah. I think, let's see what I did to it. I might have been holding my paper towels right in front of it. Is that better? Am I talking better? Or it might be, I had a little cold and my voice might be just simply fading out. But I'll try turning it up as well. Let me find that button. Does that help? Are we as loud as we can be here?
That does sound a bit better on my end. We'll see what chat says.
Okay,
yeah, chat says
How's
chat
that?
says
That's
much
as
better.
high as
So
it'll go. Okay, great. Yeah, I think I was holding my paper towels in such a way that it was blocking the mic from my
Gotcha.
vocal cords.
Well, that's much better now.
All right. So just to just a few more drops to see the colors of the light here. And we're going to pop in some yellows. I mean, obviously, I'm not at this to do a beautiful representational artwork of this poor little house. Well, I had to come over here and get some clean white. What I'm doing is just taking a look at how, when we mix colors, we can achieve different effects just by the 3 primaries we choose. And I'm sort of thinking this is really fun. Has anyone else been doing this along with me? And are you having fun yet? That's the big question is, are you having fun yet? All right. I am going to lighten the color of the sky just a smidge. And, whoops. I think I'm at the end of my headphone tether. I'm going to lighten the color of the sky just a tiny, tiny bit and get rid of that phthalo. And so the purpose of all this was just to see these colors side by side, to see what this looked like, to see if it represents something that is spring-like in quality, because we're going to compare it. Well, maybe I'll take on the colors of winter next. We don't have to do them in order, do we?
Amy Hubbard says, yes, I'm following along. Rosemary C says, this is absolutely
Great,
fun.
Amy.
Lois says, you do make this fun, Diana. Your enthusiasm and nice paced speech is wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. This is a blast for me, and I'm so glad to know this. I know that doing this kind of feels like we're alone, but knowing that we're not alone, knowing that we're together, really makes this a special moment for me. Knowing that you're getting a gift. I would love this to be a gift to you from me. So let's make it that way. Okay, springtime. Ha ha. Not my best work, but we're going to move on to winter. Now, I have an already made up color mixing chart with those low intensity colors: anthraquinine or indanthrone blue, quinacridone burnt orange. If you don't have that, you could use burnt sienna. It'll just be much duller. And yellow oxide. If you have yellow ochre, that's fine too. It'll just be much duller. So that saying, I'm going to start in on this house again with that low intensity color. So quinacridone, I don't know if you can see me reaching up, but you'll see it in a minute. Quinacridone, burnt orange. What a difference. Yellow oxide. And indanthrone or anthraquinine blue. I hate that they changed the names on these things, and Golden stopped producing it, so I had to go to some different people who produce that color, and each company has a different name for it. So
Hey Diana,
yeah.
Somebody asks, on my phthalo blue there is no label on mine, BS or GS. Peter Pan, can you please ask her how you know? Thank you.
It depends on the company you're dealing with. Most companies will tell you, but here's a quick rule of thumb for that. Put down a little drop of it on a piece of scratch paper and add a little white to it. If it looks turquoise, you've got green shade. If it looks a little purpley, you've got red shade. And if it looks neither, you have a more neutral version of phthalo blue. And I don't know what to say about that because I've seen that from all different companies. They do just something slightly different. So I use Golden and what's the name of the company? I just got that. M. Graham. I just bought this anthraquinine blue from the M. Graham company. And I know Winsor Newton has it. As far as phthalo blue green shade goes, I don't know. I don't know what company you're dealing with, but try that little test out. So in this winter scene, I'm going to put some snow on the roof and some snow on the ground and bare branches on the trees. So first of all, I'm going to pre-mix up a few colors. I might have to add more white. I'm going to mix up the sky color. There we go. Just blue and white. And I'll try not to block my mic. I'm going to mix up a little bit of warm white. Just put a little tiny bit of yellow in there. We don't want yellow snow. We just want it to have the effect of warm light on it. I'm going to mix up some orangey beige. Here's some orange from that color. I'm going to mix up some of the violet that's possible with these two colors. It won't be really violet. It's going to be a browny violet. But it's quite pretty with all the other colors together. So I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that. We're going to need quite a bit of this neutral color.
Hey, Dianna, we have a couple questions. Andrea Slack asks, what can you substitute for anthraquinone blue?
I would mix phthalo blue green shade and ultramarine blue together. That's the best substitute I can come up with. It won't be as muted, but it won't be as bright as the other two. So that's a good, some people, I'm not really familiar with Prussian blue, but I would not use Payne's gray. It definitely makes things murky, too murky. So here we go. I'm just going to start slabbing some of this color down.
And then another question, would Prussian blue work as well as anthraquinone blue?
Give it a try. I haven't purchased or used Prussian blue in a really long time. So the best thing I could say to that is try it out and see if you like it. If you don't like it, put the cap back on and try a different blue. Here we go. Put some clouds up there. Oh, feeling a little Bob Rossi today. Just putting some nice little clouds up there. We love you, Bob. There we go. Now I'm going to make a little bit of a warm, subtle warm gray color. That will be my branches, my bare branches up there in the sky. Look at how this changes everything. Oh my goodness. What I did to warm up that gray is I just took a little tiny bit of the orange. Really, I think any blue would do. The whole purpose of this experiment is to get you experimenting with color and trying out some different colors from and different color ideas. If you do not have any of these colors, I'm going to show you in a moment how you can mute the brightest colors down, how you can get lower intensity color from these higher intensity pigments. If you'll hang with me for just a minute, we'll get to that, okay? Because I know we don't all have the same pigments, and we're not meant to. We're all individual artists, and we have individual tastes. So I don't feel like it's important for us to be lockstep, to have all exactly the same things. I'm just using these as sort of a template. Here, I'm going to put some snow on the roof. I'm just putting a little bit of cooler color on that because I want to save my whitest white for the front of the house. And then back here, I'm going to create a shadow color, stealing some of my oozing white there. I'm going to make a shadow color for back here that isn't quite as dark as the shadows before. I'm just using this as my template for what are some possibilities here. Now here's some darker. I'm going to use my shadow color again on the side of the house. And my sort of whitey blue. There's a little tiny roof back there. I hope you're having fun with me. This is really a blast. Oh my goodness. Now I'm using my yellowy white.
Yeah, Diana, people are loving it. We got lots of people saying that they're going to watch it multiple times over and then it's really helping them with color and all that stuff. So
awesome. Well, good. This whole color thing, I have to say, I used to spend sometimes upwards of 8 hours in my studio trying to mix two colors that looked good together. And it would be the biggest frustration is that I had 25 pigments out on my palette, and I could never, if I did, after 8 hours of struggling, find the correct color, I could never find it again. It would be lost forever. And by keeping, all the experts I started reading were saying, touting the benefits of a limited palette, limited palette, limited palette. So I started using a limited palette. And it transformed the way I think about color. My teacher, William Reese, I showed you one of his photos, the photos of some of his paintings, said to me when I was mixing some green, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm mixing color." And he said, "No, you're really not. So here's what you do. Here's how you mix a color. You look at those 4 aspects of color. This is why I'm always harping on about them. Put down what it is mostly, the color that it is mostly. Is it mostly red, yellow, blue, green, orange, or purple? What is it mostly? Next, you adjust the value. Don't do anything till you get the value right. Then you play a little game between temperature and intensity. You dance around between temperature and intensity of color until you get it just right. And those, by using the 4 aspects of color, I discovered that I cut my color mixing time down from 8 hours to get 2 colors to 5 minutes. It was just that easy, using those 4 aspects of color. So yes, go after them and review them and memorize them and use them in order to create some your color harmonies. Take a look at how amazing this winter scene is coming with just a few simple colors and the muted effect of the branches. Oh, but this is supposed to be a class on the colors of fall. We'll get through this. I'm going to do, I'll say fall for last, the big finale, right? But in that saying, what I would love for us to do is take this picture or the other one I gave you. I gave you two to work from. I love this one from Maine. This little old house is overlooking a bay. So the windows all look out onto a bay in Maine. And it just is so, it's just so wonderful to me. And so you can use this one or you can use the other one I gave you, which is from where I grew up. That's from Leavenworth, Washington, the second image I gave you. You can paint that too. And let's do this as an assignment. Paint a full-blown, beautiful, finished product that you don't have to show anyone unless you like it. That's always the criteria for me. Don't show anyone you're painting until you're ready to show your people you're painting. That's the truth of it. But when you're ready, let's take a look and see if you've created those essential colors of fall. Right now, this is all about winter and creating those neutrals, those cools. The snow. Oh, look at this. Isn't this fun? Oh my goodness.
Vera asks, I really love dioxazine purple. Would you incorporate a personal favorite or does that just complicate things too much? And before Diana answers this, I just want to say really quick, guys, if you're unsure of something, just try it and see what happens and like be bold with it. Especially in your case, Vera, you say that you really love dioxazine purple and your art is for you. So give it a spin, see what you like.
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth, Peter, and that is perfect because everybody has their favorites. And this is by no means meant to take your favorites away from you. So I love dioxazine purple too, and I think you should try it. Incorporate it into what you love. And sometimes it's a fabulous, like it creates that moment for you that's really you, that people say, oh, that's your palette, you know, that's who you are. These are only meant as tools, little helpful tools if you have other colors too. What I've seen people do though is just every time they run up against a problem, they start squeezing more and more colors out, and that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. What that sometimes does is just creates new problems, because every time you put out a color, you run the risk of messing up the color harmony you've already made. You have to then figure out how to incorporate that color into the stuff that you've already done. Ooh, look at these muted colors of winter. Delicious. Delicious. I'm loving it. Oh, that wasn't meant to be a McDonald's commercial, sorry. want that to be just a little darker. I put just a little bit of the purple mix that I made here into this, that muted purple mix. There are going to be some little bits of shadows in the snow where people walked in it, where the snow is uneven. Oh, look at that. Now you can go ahead and get crazy bold with all these ideas and find a way, like pile the snow up, throw some light, change the color of the light. I love that snow when it turns pink in the afternoon, when the light hits it just so. I keep telling you about my childhood, and there was some times when being in the woods was great. Sometimes the snow would pile up on our porch so that we would walk straight to the roof from the snow on the porch, and we would sled down our roof. Oh, isn't that fun? Look at that. Snow. Oh, we could put some on tops of the branches. Look at that. Put some up on top. Again, not meant to be a finished piece, just meant to put these colors together to experiment and see what we think. Is this what we like? What don't we like? The big question, ooh, I like putting a little bit of warmth in that shadow. That pleased me. The big question here is to find a way that helps you. Find encouraging tools that help you get through your most difficult problems and help you say what it is you want to say as an artist. Again, I really get, you know, some people think they have to be lockstep with me, and that couldn't be further from the truth. What I'd love to present to you is just tools where you can express your ideas, your thoughts, your feelings more articulately. Here is our winter palette. I almost said winter palace. That's not right. Winter palette. Now I'm going to fold out. Oh, it got all messed up. I am going to fold
Shazia asks,
this out.
what's the specific name of this knife? It looks soft at the top. I believe it's a color shaper, right?
Yes, this is called a color shaper, and I have several in my possession. This one, I no longer know the brand because I've had it for 20 years. But it's made out of a synthetic rubber material, and I use it instead of a palette knife. I love it because it just absolutely is wonderful pushing the colors around. I have so much fun with this color shaper that it's hard to get myself to go back to a brush. But I have purchased several because I like them in different sizes. The thing is, see, it keeps I can hold it like a paintbrush. Palette knives, I have one here. You have to hold like this, and for some reason, my finger drags, my knuckles drag through the paint, and I get paint everywhere, all over, well, all over my hands. I get paint all over and drag it all over the painting, and it's just really, it feels awful to my hand. I've tried palette knife work for years, and it's not fun. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna open this up. And I want to let this dry for just a second before, or to cut it. So I'm going to find a little pair of scissors I have nearby and cut that so I don't have to ruin the little paintings I just did. So you go ahead and catch up with me a minute while I locate my scissors. And you can hear me rattling around. I know they're in, actually organized my stuff so that I have things in little boxes, but that doesn't help me necessarily find it all. Here we go. If you have this on a stretched canvas or whatever, it's fine. I'm just cutting this so I can move the two other ones close to the palette and not have to. I should have thought of this more carefully when I did it and done the outside ones first, but I didn't. So we have summer and fall left. Yay, summer and fall. How about that? And I'm going to be really quick with the summer one. We really went over that in the slides, and I want to get us to fall. I'd really just love for us to dig right in. So, but summer and fall have really similar palettes. I'm going to steal all this for summer, and I'm going to get a new palette out. And for those of you who are using the 4 primaries from my list, I will switch to that palette for the final painting. So for this summer one, there we go. You can see I still try to, on my palettes, I attempt to maintain that color wheel status. And one of the benefits of that, let me get my color shaper cleaned off, is that when I'm done with my painting, if I haven't ruined that little pile of color, I'm going to get a palette knife too so I can scoop them up together. I can put this back in my paint box, save those colors.
Someone asks, is this workshop going until noon?
Yes. And then there will be a Q&A right after noon. What time
Currently
is it?
it's 11:33.
Clock. Yes, it is going to noon. Look at that. See, I can just put those right back in and save what little globs of paint, because paint is so expensive. The rest is, you know, not very useful, so I won't save that. But you can see I just saved those tiny globs for another painting. Now, summer colors. Remember that summer palette? I used phthalo blue-green shade. But maybe I will mix phthalo and ultramarine for this one, because phthalo tends to be quite raw. And I'm going to mix it with ultramarine. And I remember not to put that back in my pan like that. And the reason I do that is that they tend to, they just help each other out. They make a sweeter, softer, warmer green. Now I have to be careful not to get that phthalo on anything. It will make such a mess. It's so intense. Here's my Dear Light Yellow. And my Naphthol Red Light. Bright, warm, intense colors. Now I'm going to go a little bit fast on this one because I want to give most of my time to our fall image. Here we go. Ready, set, mix. Is everyone with me? I'm going so fast. 15 minutes. I'm trying to give 15 minutes per image, and that is really blasting through these. Not trying to do finished paintings, just getting those colors up there to see what they're like. Look at what the phthalo ultramarine blue looks like. It's so pretty. It's such a beautiful blue. Oops, I'll close that color box. No sense letting them And you can make that rich, rich blue sky with this color. Just by getting it a little darker at the top and lighter and paler as you get down to the horizon. Now, Maine is known for rich, rich blue skies. And normally people, you know, who live in areas with skies that intensely blue will use cobalt blue right out of the tube. My problem with cobalt blue is that it dies away when you try to mix it into a green. It gets lost. It's a little bit of a delicate color. But I noticed that in the paint store, they have cobalt blue hue. And when I looked at the ingredients of cobalt blue hue, it was ultramarine and phthalo. So I just make my own. Here's my dark and my purple. Let's get that green going. I usually do green first to make sure I'm on the right track. Make sure I have those beautiful, rich greens that I want. Summer is green time. Everything's so rich. All the colors are just... And I know a lot of artists hate green because they can't get it to work for them. If you do your greens like this, your greens are all going to look like they belong in the same world. If you squeeze green out of the tube, if you will look at the ingredients on the tube of green, often it's made from an oxidation process, rust, not from mixing blue and yellow. So that color of green just looks like it fell out of some alien world. Here we go. Look at those beautiful greens. And one more little color family here before I start in will be some oranges to mix in. Ooh, look at how bright that is. Compared to the other oranges I mixed.
Joan Bennett asks,
right.
is cadmium red light close to naphthol red light?
Yes, it is. Naphthol red light is my substitute for cadmium red light because I tend to paint with everything I've got here, and I get cadmium all over my hands, which, you know, they say they've made it less toxic, but I still am not sure. So I tend to not use cadmium, but go ahead and use cadmium red light if you have it. It's beautiful. It's a gorgeous color. It's you know, absolutely, it is warmer than slightly warmer than naphthol red light. So your purples will come out a little more muted. That saying, it's fine. You can always find another way to create purples. You don't have to stick religiously to 3 colors on your palette. You can add a 4th or a 5th, but just to remember, every time you add a color, you're adding complexity. You can have as many colors on there as you want. I'm just demonstrating this to show you the range that you can get from just a few little colors. And I'm hoping that you take this and run with your own colors and really have an enormous amount of fun taking this and running with your own colors. Because isn't that, like, part of this is this art journey we're on. We're finding some true enjoyment in one of these beautiful things that we're doing, getting the most enjoyment out of our lives, out of our activities. If you find this excruciating, Um, find a way to find the enjoyment in it. Please find a way to find the enjoyment in it, because it's lovely. I get much more enjoyment when I'm using this tool. It's just why it ends up in my hand more often than not. I have tons of brushes, and some of them are uncomfortable to hold, and they end up not being in my hand more often than not. Oh, look at how this mixes. Those rich, rich, rich greens. And yellow greens. I'm going to have to squish some more yellow out. I really am using the yellow here.
And then a couple people are just asking, could you really quick go over one more time what the colors in the summer color chart are?
Yes, I'm using a mixture of ultramarine and phthalo blue, probably 2 ultramarines to 1 phthalo, because phthalo is so intense. This is Diarolite yellow, that warm yellow. You can substitute Diarolite for cadmium yellow deep. That's a very deep color. It's almost an orange yellow, or it is an orangey yellow. But this is the Diarolite right here. It's really, really warm. And then naphthol red light. And again, you can substitute that naphthol red light for cadmium red light. For vermilion, light vermilion, what's the other one you can substitute it for? Those are some good ones. Those are some good substitutes. Oh, look at this. Summer. Summer is here. Look at that. Oh, I just thought we were done. I'm going to throw some negative shapes in those trees and get a little bit of light on the treetops, like I see in my reference photo. I'm just veering so far away from this reference photo, it's crazy. But the reference photo, in best of times, is meant to be an inspiration. That's why I did it in black and white, because we get so hung up on matching the colors in the photo, when if you're like me, you have a printer. I have a really good printer. I have 6 colors in my printer. Most people have 3 with black. And so you're not going to get all those beautiful colors of nature. You're going to get what your computer, your camera, and your printer have sort of said is kind of sort of that color. So it's good not to be too completely attached to the actual colors or matching the colors. You can go ahead and get crazy. Look at that. Go ahead and be crazy with your colors. Go ahead and just have some fun. I'm mixing these right on the page here. I'm going to get a little bit of a blue violet for the shadow on the house. I'm going to make it a warmer blue violet. Just for fun. Needs to go a little bit darker though. There we go. And so what happens when I have all my colors mixed up in advance is I can say, oh, I want that to be my light green, and I know right where my light green is. I want that to be my violet. I know where my violet is. I want that to be my sky color, and I can just dip right in without having to remix. That's the other component I came across after Bill Reese's lectured to me on the 4 aspects of color was just mix up enough so you don't have to remix every single time. And these classes back then were in oil painting. I since gave up oil painting in like you're gonna really know how old I was on my birthday here, 1998. I gave up oil painting and decided on acrylic painting as my number 1 medium because I was getting really sick from the oil mediums and the oil paints. And I wanted to paint a long time. I wanted to live a long time and paint a long time. So I decided I'd make some changes and got the acrylic paints out. The story is lovely. And many of you have heard it and will just roll your eyes if I tell it again. But the day I gave away all my paints, someone called and said, the exact day I gave away my paints and was sitting in an empty studio, someone called me and said, I hear you're an acrylic artist. And I kind of looked around to see if there was someone else there. And I said, yeah, sure, yes. And she said, well, I have some paints to give away. Would you like them? And I said, yes, I would. Thank you. And she filled my van up. I had a big van. She filled my van up twice, top to bottom, twice, with gold and acrylic paints, gallon jugs, lighting for a studio, cabinets, tables, paints. I added it all up. I got out a little catalog, added it up, and she gave me that day $10,000 worth of acrylics and paints and materials. And I will be forever grateful and wishing to pay her forward in whatever way we can pay it forward. Ooh, I'm going to put a little orangey sunlight across here. And then we're going to go to fall. Really quick, I'm just going to throw some little bit of orange light on that. Going to throw a little bit of shadow. Oh, not my best work. So for 20, I don't know, some years, I have been an acrylic painter. And I've loved every minute of it. It's been frustrating and challenging from time to time because they don't work like oils. They don't paint like oils. You have to treat them with respect that the medium deserves. A whole different, beautiful medium. And once you learn that, the world is wide open when it comes to acrylic paints. Sorry, not on this painting it isn't, but that's okay. We'll move on. I'm going to throw some flowers in those bushes just for fun. Get some of those brilliant, warm flowers of summer in there. And maybe here too. Summer. And you know how in summer, sometimes the grass starts to dry. I don't know about you guys, but around here we don't really sprinkle our grass in the summer. We just let nature take its course. So you might have a little bit of dry. Not everything is a golf course. There we go. A little bit of dry, a little bit of warm, a little bit of rich, rich, rich green. How gorgeous is that? Okay, I am going to switch palettes now. I'm switching out for a bigger palette, and I'm switching out to my colored image. Here's my colored image. This is my fall. Sorry I got a little goopy there. But, you know, it is what it is. my little 15-minute representation there. I'm going to cut it off too so I don't have to cover it. It is too thick with paint. It'll take an hour to dry because I put so much thick paint on there. There we go. There. Put it somewhere where I won't step on it. Okay. And then I'll get them all out in just a minute. How am I doing for time, Peter?
It is 11:51.
Okay, 9 minutes. Here we go. This is the palette, except for Phthalo Blue Green Shade, which I'll get out. This is the palette I gave people to substitute. And so it has a few different colors on here. These are the substitute colors that I gave in my list of materials. Ultramarine blue and phthalo blue are the same. Titanium white is the same. This is quinacridone red, also known as primary red. And over here, I have broken my rule about not having cadmiums. This is cadmium yellow medium. I think I put on yours light, but this is what the art store sent me. So it's what I'm using. I ordered them all one way and I got them and said, okay, well that's what I'm using. And so what I want to do is think about those contrasts that I was talking about, how to pose those bright colors, those brilliant colors against a color opposite or against a neutral. We see some neutrals in here. Now what I've done with mine is I opened this up in my photo. I just opened the photo up large on my computer. I have a Mac and it gives me a little editing thing and I turned up the intensity of the colors. I just took the knob that says saturation and I turned it way up so that I have brighter colors on here. And it's not cheating. You can do that. All right, I better get hopping or I won't get done. I'm going to switch these so I don't slop paint all over my photo. So I'm mixing the phthalo and ultramarine to make a sky that's brilliant. Ooh, look at that beautiful, brilliant autumn sky. Now, in my color story that we did on the slides, I used phthalo blue. So I'm going to use predominantly phthalo in my mixes. And I'm going to mix a purple to be the background color for a lot of these oranges, to be the shadow color. Sorry, my voice is starting to go. I better hurry. Now there is a brilliant warm green still in the grass. So I will mix a brilliant warm green. It's so easy to do when you have a brilliant yellow and a brilliant blue, and the blue is got a little red in it and the yellow has a little orange in it. You've got a brilliant warm green right out of the, you don't have to fuss too much. And then I'm going to mix a darker green. So I'm using my ultramarine so it doesn't get too bright. If I mix my phthalo, it will get too bright. So let's do this. Darker green, darker. Now, orange. There's so much red orange in this image, and I love it. These are the New Englandy colors that I love. This is going to be my house shadow color. I'm going to throw a little orange in that after I mix. So here we go. Oops, I want to get that blue out of there. That doesn't belong. That will mute it. Okay. This is about as bright as orange as I could expect. Look at how brilliant that is. Now I want some yellow orange. And I want some red orange. I'll just use the yellow that's already on my shaper here.
So a couple questions.
Yeah.
What red is being used in autumn?
Yes. Well, in this one, I am using, this is a quinacridone red. I would use naphthol red light. It depends on the brilliance. Like some autumn scenes are very muted. But when you've got this brilliant color, I'd use the most brilliant red you have. In this case, I'm using the palette. See, I've got a little bit of naphthol red light on my scooper, and it's just about the same brilliancy as the quinacridone red. I think it's just a little bit warmer. So when I add yellow to it, when I add yellow to this one, I'm warming it up. Just get the most brilliant, vibrant, warm red you have in your batch of colors, and I think you'll be okay. One more color I'm going to mix is my black, my dark, dark, dark. So I'm mixing my darks from the dark side. And I'm going to throw just a drop or two of yellow, or in this case, there's yellow in the green. I'll just throw some green in there. There we go. There's my dark. And now I'm going to get started. And look at how dark that got. It's as dark, as long as it's thick, it's as dark as black. And now I've got this purple color that I'm going to throw in here. As I see, it's not quite as dark back here. There's another really dark old house back behind these trees, and that's what's making that dark color. I'd say I'd made the roof not big enough. And I'm going to use some of this purple back here in the darks of the trees. Just get my darks in. What darks do for you, and we haven't gone into this, is they set up a really nice composition. They help lead your eye through the composition. Excuse me. There we go. Got it. And what, if you take my class, my design class, or if you have, you'll see how darks can lead your eye through a composition. What I'm going to do to warm this green up, to make it a more fall green, is I'm taking some orange, I'm putting it beside the green, I'm mixing it in. You know that color that the trees start turning before they're all the way orange? Here we go. I'm mixing orange into the green. There's the color I'm looking for. That orangey green, almost turned to orange color. Grorange. Here's my lighter green. What happened in my yard this fall is that finally started raining and the grass turned green. After being beige all summer, it turned green, which I was really happy for a minute. Of course, beige grass doesn't need to be mowed, so there's that. Look at this. Now I'm going to start with the sky up here. Now I'm just going all over the place because these are meant to be color studies. what your job will be. Look at how uniform the sky is here. I think that's because there's mist up there, making the sky look very uniform. Cover my mic for a minute. Excuse me. That's not supposed to happen right now, but I have had a cold.
Yeah, you
so
doing okay,
everything-
Diana?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just want to get through these last little bits. I'll excuse myself for a minute, go have a little
Sounds
cough.
good.
You know, you just have a tickle and
Yeah.
it won't go away. Oh, look at this. Now, when I put the orange on, remember that little chart I did where the orange looks brighter when it's posed next to a color with its complement? Look at that beautiful color going up. Oh, isn't that just gorgeous? Ooh, look at how it just rides over that complementary color. Oh, look at that. I think I'm making a big mess of it, but I really love what's happening. Messes are just part of the skill set we need to develop. Good mess making skills are really essential in this. Here, I've added some warm orange to that purple. And what that's going to do is really give it that look in there. I'll cover it up again in a minute. Oh, now, get some bright, sort of, the value of that orange is deeper than the color, but it's so brilliant. Deeper than the color of the sky is what I meant to say. Oh, look at that. This one's quite dark back here. It's going in shadow. Whoa, here it comes, the color. And I'm seeing shadow. So I'm taking the purple and mixing it with the orange. Creating a shadow color. Oh, this is so fun. Look at how beautiful all these colors. It looks like everything's on fire, just like it does. Posing the color next to its opposite and also next to a darker, duller color is going to help this color. If I find this is too goopy, I can just scrape it back. Put my dark color down thin, and then I'll put the light color back over top of it in just a minute. Oh, I like that. Now I'm going to put on a shadow on the house. We need some darker, cooler colors to keep this whole thing from just turning into a fire. Put in some sky holes. This is not the most accurate tool to make sky holes with, but I'm so loving it for everything else. I'm going to give it a shot. There's sort of a greeny red tree here, but I think it's going to go into this before I put a little bit of that greeny color on it. Darks. Maybe some dark greeny purple down here. Is anyone else having a festival of fun right now? I know I am. This is just crazy. After 3, you kind of get a little punchy and you're just like willing to just throw the paint down as hard and as crazy as you want because what the heck, you know? Okay. How am I doing for time, Peter?
It is 12:06, but if you want to keep going, you can totally feel free
Oh,
to for a little bit longer.
I'll just take
Yeah,
another minute or two to get a few little things in here, just a couple of little moments of not necessarily finish, but my voice is starting to go
yeah,
anyway, so I don't like that green. I want
absolutely.
orange back there.
Um, Jackie
Yeah,
asks, is there a file for the color mixing
and
charts?
dark.
I'm not sure because Diana's shown a few, so I'm not sure which you're talking about, but I'll link in chat. There's in the post there is a color mixing chart. It has like the color wheel, right? And then it has all the different colors. So we do
Yes,
have that one. Um,
and I will let you have access to the green chart and the orange chart. Just put your own colors in it. Don't put mine. Put the colors you use. Um, and I'll make sure that that's available to people. But yeah, the color mixing chart, this one, is available for download. And every time you mix a different set of colors, do this for a while. Put these in a little plastic sleeve, stick them in a notebook, and then literally you'll think, oh, I remember those low intensity colors. What did I use? And this keeps you from having to reinvent the wheel. So fill them up. You know, you might end up with 12 of them or 20 of them. Who knows? Fill them up. And they are very helpful. I've had students who never use them and students who rely heavily on them. And it's all up to you how you want to use those tools. One more little bit of color, and then I think my voice is the main thing that's like not gonna not gonna last. So I'm gonna mix a little peachy white for the light that's shining on the house. I want it white, but peachy white. And I'm making big piles of it so you can see me do it. And oops. In New England, the whites are very crisp, so I'm going to put some peachy white down and then put real white over top. And then finish up with a couple of little moments. And then I'll go back to my desk and you can ask questions away. And if I think I know the answer, I'll answer. And if I'm pretty sure I don't know the answer, I'll try to be honest with you and tell you I don't know that answer. But here we are, the colors of fall, posing bright colors against neutrals, using the brightest colors in your color box, posing the brights against the neutrals, making sure you've got some good darks in there to pose the brights against the darks. Let's throw in a couple of little bright accents across the top of that. Just a spattering of stuff. And again, these little studies were just meant to have some context to put the colors in so we could really see how they looked in context. Not meant to be finished paintings, but your homework will be to finish this or that one I gave you from, here it is. This one that I also posted. This one's from Leavenworth, Washington. This is a giant maple tree, Autumn Leaf Festival. You can paint this or the other one and then post it. And let's take a look at what you come up with your colors of fall. Okay, I'm heading back. Oh. Oh dear. All right. Well, here we are. Back home. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Looks
we
like
can
I've
hear you
been
great. Yeah, a
painting.
couple people commented on your hands. They like how you get all messy.
I know, I should be wearing gloves. Even though acrylics don't soak in like oils, they just come off. It's still better to not have it on there, especially since I was touching cadmium colors. So anyway, questions. I'm open for questions for the next, I don't know, half hour, 20 minutes, half hour? It's up to you until my voice goes and I'm done. How's that? Any questions? Or we can just review a couple of the slides I
Yeah,
had, or
we could take a few
whatever it
questions.
is
Let's take
you'd like
questions
that.
for like 10 minutes or so.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know if you know this, but we had someone asking what the width of the color shaper that you use is.
I have a 1 inch and a 3/4 inch. And I think I was using the 1 inch today on an 8x10 canvas.
Perfect. We'll see if any other questions come in here. Is there a list of her colors for each season? I don't think. Yeah, I don't think it's on
Yeah.
the thing right now, but we'll make sure to update it, I think.
No, it's in my slides, and you can sort of fast forward till you get to the season, and it's circled on that
Yeah.
chart in the slides. And that is only meant to be a guideline. Ideas of colors you could choose from that would sort of give you an instant seasonal look. It wasn't meant to override your own personal choices or your observation. So please don't use that as a gospel. Use it as a little tool, a handy, helpful
Yeah.
tool when you get stuck. Okay. That's why it wasn't listed, because I didn't want people to think you could only use those colors. They're
Yeah,
just a little
absolutely.
guide. Okay.
Um,
All right.
And then, so now we have a
Awesome.
few people asking if you could potentially show the 4 finished studies side by side or something like that, or in sequence, or.
Yes, I will go back over to my thing and move them all around. I meant to do that. Thank you for reminding me. I will get them out and put them side by side. Here we go. Now, I got a little goopy on summer. Sorry about that. Winter, using the 3 muted colors. Yellow oxide, quinacridone burnt orange, and anthraquinine blue. Spring, using 3 cool colors. Yellow, Hansa yellow light, quinacridone magenta, ultramarine blue. Summer, using 3 warm colors. I actually used 4. Ultramarine blue, phthalo blue green shade, the warmest yellow I have, which is Darylite yellow, and my warmest red, naphthol red light. And then fall, I used, what color did I use? What color was the blue? It was a mixture of phthalo and ultramarine. I had phthalo and ultramarine on the palette. I had quinacridone it was called Primary Red, which is also quinacridone red. And this was cadmium yellow, medium. If I was doing this from my palette, I would have used those two blues, ultramarine and phthalo, naphthol red light, and darylite yellow. But I did want to show how the other colors that I put on the limited color list could work in this situation. But you can see how just adjusting the color family that you choose gives an impression of the season. How you choose to work with the values and the temperatures within each will also enhance it. So anyway, those are the four all together.
Kathleen says, is Hansa yellow light equal to cadmium yellow light?
Yes, it is. Let me switch back over to me. It is. It's I switched away from cadmium yellow light because of the cadmium issues. It's actually not because it's more opaque and it covers better. But I lived on a little bay where we had whales and seals and stuff coming in the bay. And I had a septic tank, and I didn't want any cadmium colors go down into my septic tank either. So when I lived on Camino Island, I was rigorous to keep the cadmiums out. But if you wipe all the solids off your brush and make sure the brush is really wiped off, and then, then you can swish it. You can let the paper towel dry out, and there's not as much cadmiums that go into the environment, and they solidify. So that's a cadmium thought there. I've tried really hard to keep the really toxic pigments out of my palette.
Yeah.
Just so I can keep painting.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Cerulean blue is another toxic one that I have tried to exit from my paintings as well. So the toxicity level should be written on the back of every tube.
Patsy says, does wearing gloves solve the skin issue of absorbing cadmium enough?
I believe so. Just don't sand it. I think that gloves would be a completely, and make sure you're wearing the gloves when you're washing your brushes too. So, and wearing your gloves when you're cleaning out all the wet products. I think that's where it would get into your hands mostly. Like I said, acrylic paint just kind of peels off the surface of my skin. It's not, oil paint used to just suck right down in and stain my skin, and I would taste metal in my mouth within 3 minutes after touching oil paint. So I knew it was I knew it was there, and I got really, really, really sick. So and it was neurological. I had seizures from the oil paint. So I'm pretty strict about that, and going into places where there's wet oil paints as well. Not everybody has that. I know lots of people who paint in oils who've never had a problem. So it was probably just me and my messy ways. So anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. If there's no other questions,
I think we'll call it 4
then
questions
I'll-
for today, guys. Diana's needs some rest, stuff like that.
I need to take a nap. I got two grandkids coming over in an hour. So
Yeah, absolutely.
take a nap. All right. Well, I have enjoyed being with all of you. I know there were quite a few, and I hope all your questions about this thinking, it's more a thinking process than anything. I hope all your questions were answered about this process. Oh, here's a little painting I did with 3 colors, fall painting. Let's see if I can turn this right behind me. And you can see what a rich variety of colors you can get from just 3 primaries in white. So give it a try. There's another little winter scene off to that side where I used the 3 brighter primaries to create this winter scene. But you can see how, sometimes you can't follow that guide. You have to follow your eyes and your aesthetic and your intuition. and just use the guide just for that, just as a guide. So thank you so much. Thank you, Peter. You've been a
Absolutely,
joy
and vice
to me,
versa.
For taking care of all the technical things. And thank you all for being here and joining me. And thank you for being part of this amazing journey of Acrylic University. I've been on this journey too, and it is so delightful. I thank Jed and you, Peter, for starting it and for creating this venue where lots and lots of people can have this wonderful benefit.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Thank you,
so
guys.
much.
And next week's live event is not going to be next week's event isn't going to be a live event. They're going to be pre-recorded videos of painting critiques from Jed and Dianna, I believe. So just want to let you know. Yes,
that's
so
right.
just want to let you know about that. But yeah, guys, we love you. We believe in you. And as always, we will see you next time.